In mid-2016, I had my first contact with Dying Light. The idea of combining parkour with a zombie apocalypse could not have been executed better than it was. However, what truly stands out to me is the atmosphere and the world that Dying Light delivers throughout its campaign. The way light reflects through particles, the destroyed houses, abandoned streets overrun by zombies, and of course, the freedom to climb walls and leap between rooftops. All of these elements come together to make Dying Light a unique and remarkable game. That said, with the ability to modify some of these aspects through mods, I decided to explore what I could change and implement to make the gameplay more immersive and dynamic. I also added several mods that altered the behavior of the infected, making them more aggressive and resilient. After this brief introduction, allow me to present Dying Light in a way you have never seen before. The mods I am using include Night Runner, Daywalkers, and a visual mod that adds dense fog, giving Dying Light a much stronger horror atmosphere. Night Runner completely changes the nighttime experience. Nights become darker, more dangerous, and far less forgiving. Visibility is heavily reduced, forcing you to rely on sound, instincts, and careful movement. Exploration at night feels tense and unpredictable, turning every decision into a risk and making survival far more intense. The Daywalkers mod removes the sense of safety during the day. Infected that were once limited to nighttime now roam freely under sunlight, making the world consistently hostile. This forces constant awareness, as danger is no longer tied to a specific time of day. Finally, the Fog mod adds a thick layer of mist across the environment, limiting visibility and enhancing the feeling of isolation and fear. Streets feel claustrophobic, threats emerge without warning, and the overall tone of the game shifts toward pure survival horror. Together, these mods transform Dying Light into a darker, more immersive, and relentlessly dangerous experience. My main goal while installing these mods was to push Dying Light into a more immersive experience. That could have been partially achieved with shaders alone, improving lighting, contrast, and atmosphere. But visuals were not enough. I wanted the game to feel harsher, more oppressive, and less predictable. That is where Daywalkers came in. By combining gameplay changes with visual alterations, something unexpected started to happen. Once all the mods were active, Dying Light no longer felt like just a zombie survival game. At times, it felt closer to Silent Hill. And I am not sure if that was intentional or just a result of how these elements collide. The fog is not as dense or overwhelming as the one seen in Silent Hill, but it serves a similar purpose. It limits visibility, distorts perception, and turns familiar streets into uncertain territory. You can no longer fully trust what is in front of you, or what might emerge from the mist. There are moments where the silence feels too heavy, where the environment itself feels hostile. And sometimes it genuinely feels like at any second, something unnatural could step out of the fog. Almost as if a pyramid head-like figure could appear, climb walls effortlessly, and begin a relentless chase. This constant sense of unpredictability changes how you move, how you explore, and how you survive. The city stops being a playground for parkour and becomes a place where hesitation can be fatal. In addition to that, I also installed a mod that increases the frequency of rain, and honestly, I never expected this combination to work so well. The rain completely reshapes the mood of Harran. Streets feel heavier, darker, almost melancholic. The sound of water hitting the ground blends with distant noises, making the city feel more alive, yet strangely abandoned. While playing, I constantly found myself slowing down, sometimes even stopping entirely just to observe the scenery. Watching the rain fall over ruined buildings, flickering lights reflecting on wet surfaces, and shadows stretching across empty streets. Moments like these made Harran feel less like a game map and more like a place with its own history. At every turn, I felt compelled to explore again, to walk through areas I had already seen countless times, as if I might discover something new hiding in plain sight. A different path, a forgotten corner, or simply a new perspective shaped by the atmosphere itself. This combination of rain, fog, and altered gameplay doesn't just change how Dying Light looks, it changes how it feels. Harran becomes a city that invites exploration, but never lets you feel completely safe while doing so. I'll admit, it took me some time to adapt to this new style of gameplay. I was so used to the familiar yellowish filter, the faster pace, and effortlessly crushing infected that frustration became a constant companion at first. Encounters that once felt trivial now demanded caution, planning, and restraint. But that was exactly the point. My goal was to experience Dying Light in a way I never had before. Something slower, something that required patience, attention, and time. A version of the game where rushing forward was no longer the smartest option, and survival depended more on awareness than brute force. This shift in pace forced me to rethink how I approached Harran. Every movement mattered. Every decision carried weight. And gradually, frustration gave way to tension, and tension turned into immersion. At night, the infected become far more aggressive than in the base game. One of the mods I removed was the warning system that usually alerts you the moment a night hunter detects you and a chase begins. Now, there is no warning at all. There is no sound cue, no countdown, no preparation. The only signal I get is them suddenly jumping on me, forcing a frantic struggle just to break free. Every encounter feels abrupt and violent, catching you off guard when you least expect it. I also had the impression that the infected became much more resistant during the night. Hits that would normally put them down barely slowed them. I am not entirely sure if that was the result of the mods, or simply because I was trying to survive using nothing more than a piece of metal pipe. Either way, nighttime no longer feels like a challenge you can manage. It feels like something you endure, a constant state of pressure where every sound matters, every shadow feels suspicious, and every mistake is punished immediately. On top of that, one of the mods significantly reduces loot across the map, making supplies much harder to come by. Weapons break far more easily, and for a long time, until you manage to level up your survivor rank, you are forced to rely on wooden sticks and metal pipes just to stay alive. There is something deeply ironic about that. While the world around you feels increasingly dangerous and unforgiving, you remain almost completely under-equipped. Enemies grow stronger, the environment becomes harsher, and yet you face it all with improvised weapons that barely hold together. Both day and night cycles are also extended, making time itself feel heavier. On one hand, this adds to immersion. On the other, it creates a new kind of pressure. One of the mods completely removes the option to sleep through the night. There is no shortcut, no escape. You are left with two choices: wait for daylight inside a safe zone, or step into the darkness and earn double experience by risking everything. And honestly, there is nothing more tedious than spending an entire night doing nothing, locked inside a safe zone, listening to distant sounds and watching the clock slowly move forward. So eventually, the decision becomes inevitable. You either face the night, or you waste it. I also decided to make the HUD as minimalistic as possible. At first, I thought removing almost everything would naturally improve immersion, and in some ways it did, but it also made the experience significantly harder. Without visual feedback, I often found myself using the wrong items, wasting valuable resources without even realizing it. Simple actions required more attention, and mistakes became far more costly than before. Objectives also became harder to locate. Even though I could always open the map, I refused to do so. It felt like cheating, like breaking the illusion I was trying so hard to maintain. As a result, progress slowed down and exploration became more uncertain. The biggest issue, however, was not knowing how much health I had left. Time and time again, I entered fights believing I could handle a group of infected, only to be abruptly killed. There was no warning, no gradual realization, just sudden failure. By stripping away the HUD, the game stopped giving me information and started demanding intuition. Survival became less about numbers and more about judgment. And when that judgment failed, the punishment was immediate. Overall, the experience turned out to be far more difficult than I initially expected. Even after leveling up and reaching the maximum level across all skill trees, I still struggled to face the infected and escape from them. And whenever I was surrounded by a horde, the outcome was almost always the same. I didn't survive. Despite the frustration, I was completely satisfied with this new way of playing Dying Light. It pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to engage with the game in a slower, more deliberate way. Every victory felt earned, and every mistake had real consequences. It is honestly impressive how a game that is over 10 years old can still offer so many fresh and different experiences, all thanks to the creativity of its modding community. Dying Light proves that with the right changes, even familiar worlds can feel dangerous and unknown again. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this experience, consider subscribing and leaving a like. Good night and good luck.